Now the Neapolitan chord, or the Neapolitan sixth as it is sometimes called, is a very special and familiar sound, especially when you have listened to classical music. Let's listen to the Neapolitan sixth first, so we'll know what we're talking about. What a beautiful sound, and what a drama. If you haven't heard it in classical music, then maybe you have encountered it in movies like the theme of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, composed by John Williams, for instance. It is a very particular sound, and that is why it is so remarkable that this chord has been used in so many different historical musical styles, from the Renaissance to the Baroque to the Classical era and to the Romantic period. It really stood the test of time, and even in modern music this phenomenon is still used. So let's find out what this famous Neapolitan sixth chord is all about and why it is called Neapolitan in the first place. And this may surprise you. The subdominant or predominant is a major chord just like the dominant chord and the tonic. Now the major quality makes the basic cadence, the 1-4-5-1, sound very strong. In a minor key this is not the case. In C minor, for instance, we have an F minor and a G minor chord instead of an F major and G major chord. F minor and G minor sound weak. And therefore the fifth degree in minor is often altered to a major chord. In this case the G minor chord becomes a G major chord or even a G dominant 7 chord. Now the minor fourth degree F minor still sounds weak, and composers in the 17th century wanted to do something about it. The note C in the F minor chord is the tonic of the C minor scale and has the least tension of all the notes in the scale. By raising that C in the F minor chord to a D flat, the F minor chord became much more interesting and stronger sounding. And this is how the Neapolitan chord came to life. Now, later in this lesson we look much closer to the structure and the function of the chord. It must be said that chords in the 16th and beginning of the 17th century didn't really exist, because in those days they were more thinking in counterpoint compositions, where the voices were independent lines that made up the harmony and melody. The Neapolitan harmony was no exception in this. Functional harmony, that is based on the function of chords within a key, was more or less the successor of counterpoint technique and came much later. Now the name Neapolitan sixth has two parts, Neapolitan and sixth. Now the word Neapolitan would suggest that the use of this chord originates from Naples in Italy, but this is not the case. Many composers were using the Neapolitan harmony even before the Neapolitan school of music was founded by composers like Scarlatti and Durante. Durante was very famous in that period. Now, because of that fame, theorists that lived centuries later referred to composers like Durante, because he was using that Neapolitan chord, and in particular the Neapolitan school of music, as the birthplace of the Neapolitan chord, which is historically incorrect.
Despicable and infamous.
Now, as I have explained in the second chapter, the Neapolitan sixth is the result of raising the fifth of a minor chord on the fourth degree in a minor scale. Now let's use the A minor key as an example. The chord on the fourth degree in A minor is the D minor chord built from the notes D, the minor third F and the perfect fifth A. Now this minor chord can be seen as a weak subdominant chord. By raising the A to the B flat, we'll get a chord with much more color and tension. And we call this the Neapolitan chord, or the Neapolitan sixth. And it sounds like this. Now, as you can hear, it creates a certain emotion, especially when we add some dramatic strings to it. The distance between the lowest note D and the highest note B flat is the minor sixth interval. Now, this is the reason of the name Neapolitan sixth. Another way to define the Neapolitan chord is to see it as adding a minor third and a minor sixth to the fourth note of a minor scale. And we'll get the notes D, F and B flat. Taking a closer look, we could make a triad out of the structure by putting that minor 6 B flat in the bass. So we'll get B flat D F, and that is a B flat major chord. It is in fact the major flat second degree in the A minor key. Now the Neapolitan chord can now be seen as the first inversion of that flat second degree. It must be said that this explanation was adopted much later in history, around the 19th century. The notation of the first inversion in our time is notated as B flat over D, but in the 17th century and in the classical music in common, the first inversion was indicated by a 6 next to the chord or above the chord in music notation, referring to that sixth interval in the inversion. And this is confusing because a 6 next to a chord would mean that we have to play a 6 chord. But in classical music it means the first inversion of any chord. Anyway, it is obvious now how the chord got its name, right? Now a cadence is a chord progression that leads to the tonic by the gravity and tension of the chords in that progression. And the Neapolitan sixth chord can be used in some variations of that basic cadence. By the way, in the 16th and 17th century the chord was often used on dramatic moments in the lyrics of the music to emphasize that drama. Drama. A mighty string Now, let's look at some traditional Neapolitan cadences. The first possibility is using the Neapolitan sixth, the dominant, and then back to the tonic. It is a distinct and beautiful sound. This one is in the key of D minor and starts on the major 6th degree B flat major. In this progression, the top notes are half steps above and below the tonic. And this makes the progression very strong and recognizable. The second option is to squeeze a second inversion of the tonic between the Neapolitan chord and the dominant. Now this one is in C minor, and by using the inversion of the tonic we have now 2 times the dominant 5th G in the bass. The sound is now prolonged over a longer time, and that makes it even more dramatic. And there's also a variation with a diminished chord on the raised 4th degree that comes between the Neapolitan chord and the dominant chord on the 5th degree. Now for this cadence we use the A minor key, and this means that we could add the D sharp diminished chord to the Neapolitan progression in A minor. Probably one of the most well-known compositions that is strongly identified with the Neapolitan 6th chord is the Moonlight Sonata by Ludwig van Beethoven in C sharp minor, where the Neapolitan 6th chord is preceded by the 6th chord A major and finds its way along the dominant G sharp to the tonic C sharp minor right in the beginning. Now the Neapolitan sixth is a very defined sound, and you would expect that this sound would become outdated in some period of its existence. But nothing could be less true. The Neapolitan sixth has never been gone. And the use of it has changed, however, but not too drastic. And one of the things that changed in the 19th century was that the chord was used in the root position instead of the first inversion. The effect was a tritone in the bass line. And you find this at the end of the prelude number 20 in C minor by Frédéric Chopin. The D flat and G in the bass line form an unstable tritone that resolves to the tonic C minor. Now the use of the root position of the flat second degree could be explained as a borrowed chord from the Phrygian mode, a so-called modal interchange. Do understand that it is historically incorrect. In the 16th and the 19th century, composers had forgotten all about the modes that were popular much earlier than that. So, during the heydays of the Neapolitan chord, no one thought of modes anymore. It would take until the 20th century before the modes were reinstalled into modern music. Now you can also find this root position of the Neapolitan idea in one of the most beautiful classical guitar pieces, and that is called Capriccio Arabe by Francisco Tárrega. The piece is in D minor and the Neapolitan 6th chord is the E flat major chord. The tritone in the bass line is formed by the Neapolitan E flat and the dominant 5th A. Another modern example that I've mentioned in the beginning of the video is the theme of the Raiders of the Lost Ark by John Williams. He uses the Neapolitan 6th in a major key instead of a minor key. That would be the obvious thing to do. He creates an exciting moment with the Neapolitan 6th D flat and root position just before the theme is starting to end on the tonic C major. Again, a tritone is created in the bass line with the notes D flat and G. In this lesson we have seen that the Neapolitan 6th is a relatively straightforward phenomenon and at the same time so incredible, powerful and recognizable that you can't miss it when it passes you by. It is also incredible that a chord with such a specific sound has been used in so many styles and even today it is still used. Can we use it in pop or rock? Yes, I think it can in some cases. Maybe we should start to use it again in mainstream music, or maybe not. Anyway, I hope I inspired you to experiment with the iconic and remarkable Neapolitan 6th chord. So, this was the lesson for now. In the meantime, you could check out my Patreon page or the ebook store. Be well, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!
And I suppose you want to go and practice, eh?